Welcome. If you just logged in, welcome. It's lovely to have you here. Good morning. Welcome to Wellbeing 2024, creating well-being for your workplace. If you are feeling a tiny bit overwhelmed, confused, nervous, unsure about how to do well-being, or if you are doing well-being to the absolute best of your ability and you are still feeling unheard or unseen, maybe unrecognized, maybe like this work is not important, I want to assure you that you are in the right place, because Bill and I are going to give you lots of tools today to make sure that you can get your wellbeing program up off the ground. I would like to start today's session by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. We are dialing in from lots of different areas across Australia. We pay our respects to elders past and present. I'd like to acknowledge anyone on this call with lived experience, living experience, or caring for those with mental ill health. And I just want to acknowledge every single person that has taken an hour out of their day today to log in. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate your attendance. Let's start with some intros. If this is the first wellbeing event by CWH you have been to, a very warm welcome to you. My name's Carli Phillips. I'm a wellbeing keynote speaker. I'm the CEO at Corporate Wellbeing Hub and a lead researcher for a couple of different government wellbeing research projects that are running right now. I would like to introduce my co-host, Bill Carson. Good morning, Bill. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, Carli. It's fantastic to be here, and good morning, everyone else. I'm part of the Corporate Wellbeing Hub team. My specialist areas are in psychosocial coaching, given that this legislation is so important. It's so important for organisations. So specialising in that area, and mental health first aid and resilience work, social emotional intelligence, so a whole range of areas supporting leaders, specifically managers and teams, to have a happy life at work.
That's a nice way to put it. Thank you, Bill. Have a happy life at work. So today's session is about you as a wellbeing lead and a wellbeing role model. It's also about your workplace. So we're going to give you a whole lot of tools to take back to help elevate and uplift wellbeing in your workplace, including a whole lot of tools. So we're going to cover you as a wellbeing role model. We'll look at some trends for 2024. We're going to look at assessment, including psychosocial risks and wellbeing indicators. And then we're going to go through the 3 steps on how to build a customised wellbeing program. And we're going to hear from our guest speaker, Paul Benson, who's going to be joining us, who is going to share a case study with us. And then I'm going to give you a QR code that you can scan and you can download all the tools you need to take back to your workplace. So we hope that is really helpful for you. Feel free. Bill and I are really happy to take questions all the way through as we go. So don't hold your question till the end. Put it in the chat box and we'll keep our eye on that and answer the questions as we go through today's session. I want to start with something that seems very obvious, but maybe not to everyone, and that is this very strong business case as to the reason why we actually invest in employee wellbeing. Now, you would have seen a ton of research that's come out in the last couple of years, and Bill's going to take us through a little bit of a summary on that research today. But the bottom line of why we invest in our employees is for this reason. Our employee expectation has shifted. That is a reality, particularly since lockdowns. And the result of that is that we now have 23% of employees engaged, 67% quiet quitting, 11% loud quitting. Who knew loud quitting was even a term that we use? This guy's just walking out the door, right? So what I am hearing across nearly every industry in this space is If my company is not looking after me, if they are not investing in my well-being, I'm going looking somewhere else because every other company is doing that. So we've now got 43% of people actively seeking work and over 80% saying this is a good time to find a job. So if this is not a very, very loud, scary statistic for your manager and your directors to be looking at, people sitting in your HR team will be very aware of retention rates and how hard it is to get employees into workforces and into businesses now. So this is a very, very important reason why we want to focus on wellbeing. Okay, so we're going to talk about you in this session. Here is my first question for you. Are you a wellbeing role model? Anyone cringing in the background already? Do you ever work through lunch? Do you ever work at night? I'd like to see a few answers in the chat box. Do you ever work on weekends? Do you ever check email on holidays? Do you answer yes to any of those questions? Let me know in the chat. We might be doing confession time. Welcome if you've just joined us. Very nice to have you here. Thank you for your honesty, Rachel. Yes, you do answer yes to some of those things. And let me open my chat so I can see you. Used to, Susie, that's positive. Sounds like a change. Work in the evenings, Brad. Yes, Joy. Jessica's guilty. Felicity always works through lunch. Leanne. Only to work through lunch, holidays and weekends are sacred. What a nice word, Leanne. Michelle, yes to working at night. No longer working on weekends or holidays. Lunch is at 3 o'clock. Des, unfortunately, yes. And yes from J Rose, and Vanessa is a yes. And Francesca, thank you. So here is my challenge to you. My invitation is to start a micro break mindset. There's 3 little examples here on how to do this. Perhaps booking in 5-minute breaks in between tasks or meetings. Perhaps moving away from your desk for your lunch break, even outside would be even better. Number 3, take a 30-second break just to breathe deeply. We're going to do this together in a minute. And the reason I start with role modeling is because I hear wellbeing leads and people in HR say to me, we are our own worst enemy. We are so busy caring for other people, right? We are happy to put in huge hours and keep working and not actually blocking out time for our own self-care. So I am going to gently force a little bit of micro breaking on us, and we're going to start with a deep breath together. So can I ask everyone just to sit up nice and tall, and let's just take a couple of these power breaks together. We're going to do a full inhale. Hold it along the top of the box, and then a very slow exhale. Just like in those photos, it's like breathing out through a straw. And a hold along the bottom. And let's do one more together. Full inhale and hold at the top. And that very slow exhale. And if you think any of this is a bit airy-fairy, just pay a little bit of attention to your heart rate right now, because what we know happens is when our diaphragm expands like that, it sends a message through our vagus nerve to our brain, and it tells us that we're safe. And our safe message immediately slows down our heart rate. So this is one example of a micro break we can all do as role models of well-being to try and close some of these stress cycles. And just to show you a little bit more, the brain scans actually back it up. So these are images of brain scans. Blue and green is the lowest stress. Orange and red is the highest stress. And you can see along that top line, if you take no breaks and you just go back to back for 4 meetings in a row, there is a significant amount of orange and red stressed brain responses there. But have a look at that second line, taking little breaks in between. This might be the 5-minute breaks you book in between your meetings. Those brain scans are blue and green all the way through to the end. So the science backs this up for us. If we close these stress cycles, we take our deep breath, we step away, can really help to reduce our stress responses. Okay, I want to hear from you. I'm going to invite you to scan the code on the screen and join us in this anonymous poll. We're going to confess your unhealthiest habit. What is the first thing that comes to mind when I ask you, what is your guilty pleasure that you are doing that is not looking after your well-being? Let's have a look and see. I'm just going to go back a screen and make sure this refreshes. Sometimes it needs a little, there we go, plug along. Okay, no surprises here, Bill. Mindless scrolling, smoking, chocolate, staying up late.
They're probably the top 4 so far.
Yeah.
Most people.
Yeah, I agree.
We can all admit to variations on those themes.
Close this so we can see a little bit more. Not going to bed, indulging on sweets, binge eating, takeaway, coffee, chips. Quite a few screen time ones here. Always saying yes.
That's an interesting self-awareness.
Not enough sleep, proper meals, big variety of different things. So before we jump into some well-being trends, I just want you to take a minute to be self-aware about what some of the things you are doing or are not doing to really try and improve the way we role model well-being. We know our employees look up to us for this. So we need to be absolutely walking the talk when it comes to taking on some of these healthy habits. Thank you for sharing.
I'll just share one of the things that I found really helpful with a lot of our clients is the whole idea of what we call self-care credits. And self-care credits are really good because the reality is there are times when we do have to, work pretty solid, push through to get a project finished and stuff like that. And if we then don't stop and give ourselves some gratitude and appreciation and recognition that, hey, I've done that, and then just press on to the next thing, then we really drain ourselves. And if we then recognize, okay, I've pushed hard here, I've worked into the evening, I had a call into the US or whatever, I'm owed some self-care credits. So I'm going to sleep in. I'm going to do those nurturing kind of things that are really, really helpful.
It's especially good, I think, to use those credits when people are working different hours. It doesn't matter when you do it, right?
Exactly. No one knows, but this is what I love about working from home. No one knows you've got a meeting from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, who that's with. It's with the couch for a power nap.
This is it. Okay, let's have a look at some 2024 well-being trends. Psychological safety will come as no surprise to you. This is coming up in every single conversation that I'm having with existing and new clients, making sure they have a good understanding of what psychosocial hazards are, what psychological safety is, how do we get back that really safe communication and connection with our employees. The other one is gut health, which as a nutritionist, I am very happy to see is now trending. Lots of people interested in talking about not just our food, but how we eat, where we eat, why we eat, but also what we eat, looking at gut health, probiotics, prebiotics, ultra-processed foods, and the microbiome. So we've introduced a few more talks on this topic this year. The topic of recovery is really trending. Now, we know that Gen Zers right now are spending twice as many dollars on self-care as baby boomers. And in particular, something they are focused on is recovery and resilience. And we're seeing a whole lot of different types of new therapies come up: hot therapy, cold therapy, float therapy, mindfulness, holistic well-being. There's lots of things that come under recovery and resilience for younger generations, but it's certainly not dropping off. It's doing the opposite, which is good. Financial wellness programs. We definitely need to support people in this financial cost of living crisis. That will come as no surprise to anybody. Number 5, the word fasting is popping up in all sorts of interesting industries, not just in diets and intermittent fasting and what we're eating, but we're also talking about dopamine fasting. We're talking about digital detoxes, social media fasting, even skin fasting. So some of these words are things people are Googling, they're looking to explore, they're seeing if that's something interesting for them. And sleep has always been popular in terms of education and looking at as a self-care tool, but it's really starting to go into a technological slant as well. So looking at Aura rings, tracking devices, smart beds. I saw a smart bed online that even makes your coffee for you in the morning, which is very ironic. Rachel, I can send you a copy of this recording. Thank you for your question. Are there any other wellbeing trends that you are seeing? Jump into the chat and let us know if there's anything that is of interest to you. We'd be interested to see, what are you hearing? What are you interested in? Any other wellbeing trends that we might not have picked up on just here? We're going to move into a checklist. Oh, thank you, Catherine and Michelle. Biophilic design in workplaces. Absolutely love it. We saw a lot of that on TV recently. And Michelle, movement and exercise training. Thanks, Susie. Thanks for your ideas. Bill, we're going to move into a checklist looking at the 3 steps that we need to build a wellbeing program. And that is going to include what you see in the green bubble. These are the free tools that I'm going to give you the QR code to download at the end. So the 3 steps have come from my master's research into mental health strategic planning. So making sure we've got these 3 key success criteria. But also over the years, I find that wellbeing leads who follow this process, they come up with a really meaningful and engaging plan. They feel a whole lot calmer about the stress of having to build a wellbeing program. They can enjoy their job a whole lot better, and they just go into it with a whole lot more confidence. So let's kick off, Bill, with step 1.
Yes, so the assessment phase and probably the underlining theme today, as you've alluded to, Carli, is around psychosocial hazards and risks in the workplace. And I think this is incredibly invaluable because it certainly informs a total wellbeing approach. In previous this legislation, there was, part of the challenge with wellbeing is you've got wellbeing kind of loved by all the healthy people in the organization. But as we know, there are, like Australian Bureau of Statistics data is 1 in 5, 20% of people are struggling with diagnosable mental health issues and challenges. And there's, from that previous research from Gallup, there's a good 70% of people who are overall stressing and or significantly struggling. So there's about 30% of people who just love their work in a really good place, but there's a lot of people who just don't have fully the resources. So this is a global issue. The international standard ISO 45003, psychosocial hazards in the workplace, has been put in place, and Australia is certainly an early adopter. And legislation in every state Victoria, not yet, but probably highly likely this year in 2024. And so essentially it's exactly the same as physical safety. And those of you who are in kind of manufacturing or construction kinds of environments, physical safety always requires, first of all, an assessment of the risks, and then identifying essentially then the significance of those risks, and then putting in place controls, and then following those through. In the essentially the office environment, this has been quite, it's not familiar for a lot of people because the risks in physical risks in office environments have not been, that significant. But now with psychosocial risks under the microscope, then this becomes incredibly important. And the people in the organization getting involved in this are definitely work health and safety, but certainly HR. It can also be initiated and led by wellbeing leads, but generally it's the work health and safety and or HR in that whole process. And if we just, for those of you who are not familiar with the psychosocial hazards themselves, Carli, if you just show the next slide, what's being targeted is essentially these 14. High-low job demands, low job control, poor support, poor organizational change management, etc. And particularly the big ones that the legislation is going after is essentially bullying, harassment, and poor workplace relationships. And the reason why this is actually taking place is all over the world, and particularly in Australia, the psychological injury claims associated with victimization, harassment, etc., have just absolutely been skyrocketing year on year, increasing around 30 to 50% per year. And we've got research, there's research published from Allianz and Safe Work New South Wales, etc. So what's happening is psychological injury claims are now averaging around $80,000 to $100,000. They take upwards of about 8 to 12 weeks and more. And they're, comparatively to physical injuries, they're just, so much, physical injuries are just so much smaller. And a classic example is like if you break your ankle, which I did 2 years ago. You fracture your ankle, you're into a moon boot for 6 weeks, and then you're out of the moon boot and you come back to work, and you generally will kind of start doing the normal job you've been doing. The problem and the complexity of psychological injury claims is that, and I heard an example just recently where someone felt unsafe that someone had said something to them that was actually said in jest, but this person interpreted it as, they're going to kill me. And this person was in a pretty fragile state already. So they've put in a stress leave claim, psychological injury, unsafe at work. Now, this could easily turn into a $30,000, $50,000 claim, because the problem is that the person who's now struggling with this situation, where do they go? They have to go back to the same work environment, the same boss, the same people who said that thing to them. And it's very, very difficult, very, very complex. So the whole theme around, taking a proactive approach, a lot of organizations, particularly senior leaders, oh, here we go again, government involvement, interfering in our businesses, telling us what to do. But again, if we look at it from a physical safety perspective, when the legislation in 2011 changed around physical safety to make senior leaders accountable, and they'd either end up in the clink or be charged a lot of money, we now have, if you look at the data, something like over 3,000 men, and predominantly it's men who get killed on work sites, who are alive today over this 12-13 year period, because the number of injuries at work is reduced, because you've got high focus like zero harm, in many, many organizations. So ultimately we want zero harm at the psychosocial level in organizations. Is there anything else you wanted to just touch on there? I'll just say this, Carli, before we go. So the legislators have done a really good job with this. And so rather than, because everyone's got to do an assessment. And so they've made a site available called peopleatwork.gov.au. This is a free service for any organization to do their psychosocial safety assessment or audit. So you need to essentially assess your team, your people. One of the things we recommend is just start small, just pick a small group, get a feel for it, get an understanding of kind of what sort of results are coming out of it, and then expand it out from there. Because one client that I've worked with, they assess 450 of their manufacturing staff, and when I talked to Fiona about it, 161 cases of bullying, harassment, and workplace violence was showing up in the reporting. And she's got in touch with HR, and she said, "Do we have all these complaints?" And HR said, "Nothing. We have no complaints." So all this stuff is happening, and this is one of the fundamentally good things about what the legislation over time is going to flush out. So we can help both in the you do the assessment, we can help in some of the consulting work, and then also there needs to be a lot of implementation and training around it as well.
Thank you, Bill. So this step one about customization, the first question I always ask is, have you done your psychosocial risk audit? Let's have a discussion about what your risks are, because we absolutely want to build that action plan into your wellbeing program, because it becomes an L&D exercise, right? We need to be upskilling, we need to be training, we need to be making org changes, absolutely, but we also need to be upskilling employees and managers in a lot of these things. So I've just put in the chat box the link for the code of practice. It's really well written out. It's a step-by-step guide. So if you haven't touched this space yet, please start there. The link for Safe Work Australia is in the chat box. Then I say, do you have any wellbeing indicators or data? And if the answer is no, I would highly recommend starting at that point to ask your employees what they need and what they want. Because otherwise, we are just making assumptions, or the person who is making the decisions is picking what they would like, what they need personally, and they kind of assume everyone else is in the same situation. So at CWH, we provide a workplace wellbeing assessment. You can see that circle has got physical health needs or risks, it's got mental risks, and it's got workplace wants and needs, but it's only 20 questions. So it's really short and easy for employees to do. You then get a workplace wellbeing report, which has got all of your data and it's benchmarked to Australian health guidelines. And then you get an action plan. So I just want to show you what that looks like. This is an example snapshot of some of the data that you might be able to see in your report. You can see there's 3 columns, so mental health, overall health, and physical health. So if you have a look at some of those examples, if there are things here that you do not collect with your employees, you do not have a metric for, doing a workplace wellbeing assessment might be really valuable to you, because then you won't be guessing a lot of these things. You'll be able to say, right, soft drink consumption is way too high, exercise is actually okay, maybe sleep is an issue, and we've got a lot of people who are feeling really isolated and don't have anyone to talk to. Let's put an action plan together for those 3 particular things. So instead of guessing, you've got all the data there. It makes it really easy to actually customize your program. The other questions that we ask are actually about the workplace. So which of the wellbeing topics are you interested in? Which of the following benefits are of value to you? So put in your list all of the benefits that you already provide and ask your employees, let us know which are of value, and that'll show you where you want to be investing your money, or maybe where you don't want to be investing your money. But we also ask a very important question, and that is for your employees' ideas or suggestions on how to improve well-being in the workplace. You would be amazed how many answers we get. I did this in one organization and we had 8 pages of ideas that I could not even sort through, and I handed it over to HR to work through as a subcommittee group. Sometimes you get things on there that are really low hanging fruit. They might be things that are free to implement, things that you have never thought of. It is absolutely well worth asking those open questions so that you can find out what your employees' needs are. So let's do a bit of a pulse check with this group. We've got 37 wellbeing leads or HR people on the line. We have completed our wellbeing assessment at our workplace. Can you let us know where you're up to? Just scan the code on the screen. The responses are no, not yet. Psychosocial risk audit is done. Wellbeing assessment is done, or focus groups are done. Which of these are you currently up to? Have a look and see. I was hoping that first column, Bill, was going to be really low. That was my hope. Yeah.
I think that, legislation landed last year. A lot of people had 50,000 things on their plate. And so, this year, 2024, is the real year to get it happening. So quite a few people not yet. So that's good to get that going.
So if the psychosocial risk audit is done, great. If you're sitting outside of that, so if you're in the 66% who haven't done your psychosocial audit, jump into that link I've put in the chat box. If you haven't started anything yet and you want to do a wellbeing assessment, you can let me know in the code right at the end. When you get all of your tools, there is an option there to select the workplace wellbeing assessment. So all of that will be available to you. So there's a lot of people on the line today who are just learning this from the start. So I'm really glad to give you these tools so you can get back to your workplace, start implementing step 1, which is to assess, and then you'll be able to move on to step 2, which is to customize. Oh, let me flick straight through that. Here we go. Step 2. What does customizing mean? It means not just purchasing a program off the shelf or guessing what we need. What it means is we want to take our data, we want to customize it built off that data, and we want to make sure we have got really high employee engagement. And you're getting a head start when you say, we have heard you. Here's what you asked for, and here's what we're putting in the program, right? And even better when we deliver it in a ways that make it really meaningful for our employees. So let's jump into step 2 for customize.
And so what we've provided here is all of the main dates. And as you can see, there's a whole range of them, and a really good opportunity, as Carli is referring to there, is essentially customizing, aligning to themes that you organisationally, senior leadership team, etc., might want to implement. And so, as an example, if we look at the next slide, the beginning of the year it is, in theory, for those of us who have had an opportunity to have a break, a time of new, fresh energy. It's kind of like spring. I know it differs to the season that we have. So the energy is fresh. We can be you can be looking at a focus around wellbeing programs, feel good, fun, picking up on that energy, and supporting that, driving that into the mid-year. The mid-year is, particularly in the southern hemisphere, in the southern states, starting to get pretty cool. The energy changes, and this might be a time for a mid-year reset. And then we then find that as we're grinding into the later half of the year, that sometimes some support and care would be really useful. And certainly the themes around mental health start to pick up in August, September, and October. So there's, again, You know, if you went down the track of doing the wellbeing assessment, getting a feel for what the themes are from your organization, from your team, from your people, and then put in place some themes around driving that throughout the year. And for all the obvious reasons that, you know, our company cares about us, my boss cares about me, etc.
So that really leaves us with 9 months throughout the year that are really optimal for, you know, doing these wellbeing programs. January is always a bit tricky, December's a bit tricky, and I usually leave out April because there's so many public holidays and school holidays. But all of those 9 months are really good time to be launching and implementing programs. And then we usually try to get people thinking in November about planning for the following year. So here is our wellbeing menu for 2024. We've put it into these 3 sections. So feel good and fun, mid-year reset, and support and care. So you can see I've added in mood boosting in 7 ways and a couple of extra nutrition topics, a self-care one and a skin science one, because this is starting to be in demand as well. So we try to go lighthearted at the start of the year, particularly if you are using a new facilitator or a new provider. We really want to make sure we can build that trust with new clients and employee groups who've never met us before. And as Bill said, you kind of dive into that mid-year section. This is a great time to have a look at some of your psychosocial risks and some of the risks that come up in your wellbeing assessment. So what do we need to actually address here? So I would refer you back to the code of practice just as a reminder that there is an appendix in that code of practice that says action plan, and it's got ideas for the organization, such as looking at job descriptions and flexibility and things like that. So absolutely doing top-down organizational changes will be part of this. What we are looking at here is empowering and upskilling employees to protect their own health and well-being as well. So we can absolutely give them those skills. The last section, support and care, is easy peasy. Every organisation, even who don't run wellbeing programs, still do Mental Health Month, or they still do the Are You OK Day celebration. So everyone is talking about mental health and caring for people with mental illness at that time of year. So I would absolutely be doing that to leverage off a lot of that publicity and a lot of that open conversation that we are having. This is one of the downloads that's available to you, so you can download this at the end of the session. Now, this is the what. So this is selecting the content off your data, but I also want to focus on how we do this. So when we talk about engaging employees, something we really want to do is take the information to the people. We don't want to ask them to come out of field, come into the office, come out of a depot, sit in an office, sit with HR watching, put them in an uncomfortable, awkward environment. It usually does not work very well. So my suggestion is to, once you have selected your type of delivery, whether you do an interactive online event or you might do an on-site event, we come out and do a lot of toolbox talks for outdoor workers. We do keynotes and conferences for corporate groups. Once you have done that, do not stop there. Please supplement with some additional resources, because the additional employee engagement toolkit, and you can see some examples on the screen, talk tracks, videos, resources, flyers. These are the things that really start to get the message across and really start conversations within teams. So in a large organization, I would go right down to team leader level, and I would give them all a talk track that might just have the main messages from the session that we ran, and it might have 3 questions. So I'm asking team leaders to open their toolbox talks, open their team weekly WIP meetings with these questions and start a conversation amongst your team. This is where we really start to see people sharing their stories, motivating each other, getting inspired, sharing some ideas. This is where we really start to see behavior change. So the employee engagement toolkit of some description, however you want to get that out delivered, really important to actually get to that end game of seeing outcomes for your employees. So I really recommend choosing multiple delivery models, not just one way of delivering. Why not do an on-site event and do a video and do a talk track? So when we get 3 different ways, we're giving people access on demand to get the information when it suits and the way that they absorb information the best. We also do certified training. Sorry, Bill, did you want to say
Yeah,
something?
I'll just add to that as well, Carly, in the sense that people will most often be connecting most of all with their leader, their manager, their team leader, and if that person is able to talk about it, to destigmatize mental health, to open the conversations, it's really important. But it's really difficult for a lot of leaders, managers, team leaders. They never talked about this stuff. It's incredibly scary. And so we have trained the facilitator sessions, but we really encourage to do it in pairs. So instead of doing it on your own, you pair up and, get your 2 teams together and play, have a bit of fun, not take it all too seriously. And then that way, then build the confidence, build the capability through those kind of early scary implementation beginnings.
Yes, so an example of that in mental health first aid and in safe conversations training that we run, Bill, there's a bit about, learning the knowledge and learning the theory. And then there's a big chunk, which is let's practice these conversations. So we do small breakout rooms, we do one-on-one conversations, and feedback from that is I actually learnt how to say the words in my own language and feel comfortable to do that. In fact, the last safe conversations I did with you, Bill, I was paired up with a manager and he said, we did the practice. And then he said to me, I literally have to hang up this call and I have to go and have this conversation with one of my team members right now. So he was so pleased that we just had that safe space. We could actually practice that conversation. Really, really beneficial. Now, I have invited Paul to come and speak. Very sad to say, Paul's just sent me a message to say he has to attend to an emergency and he cannot get here today. So let me just do a very brief overview on behalf of Paul, who is one of our clients at Centex Security Group in Melbourne. Last year, Paul reached out to me. He was actually referred to us from another one of our clients in Melbourne. And he said, I actually want to build a wellbeing program from scratch. So they'd never done it before. He's only got a very small team. They had 10 initially start the training. He said, it's really important to me. I really want to invest in our people. And what you can see on the screen is I've got 2 graphs on there that you can see from his wellbeing report. Which wellbeing topics are you interested in? And which workplace benefits are of value to you. And burnout, sleep, energy, breathing, workload, they were kind of the top things people asked for. So we put them into his program. You can see those 6 topics. That was the program, the series that we put together for 2023 for him. You can see people ask for flu shots, which he provides his employees, and they asked for an employee assistance program, and they didn't have one, and they're a very small company, so I actually referred him on to a boutique employee EAP program that we highly recommend, and he started to use them. So really just took his action plan and went, let's go forward. We did on-site training. The photos here are at Windy Hill with the most magnificent view looking over the sports ground. And everyone actually came on site and we all sat in the room together. We had technicians in security and we had head office people, and we all sat together and we did these sessions over a period of a few months. So apologies that Paul can't be here today, but I can let you know that when we finished the series, one of the last ones we did was on food and mood, and he'd said to me that He kept getting photos that afternoon and evening of people in the supermarket buying their almonds and getting their water bottles set up and buying their healthy food to pack their lunch the next day. So I know there was definitely behavioral change and positive outcomes. So I'm really glad that he was able to do that with us. Let's jump on to step 3 of engage, Bill.
Yeah, so we've been sort of touching on it quite a bit so far, the critical importance of engagement, either top down and or bottom up. Top down is obviously largely most senior leaders are going to, need to get their heads around and start taking seriously the whole idea of the new legislation around psychosocial hazards. And been a number of our clients in which the wellbeing HR leads or the human resources leads people have kind of put that together and essentially started to help senior leaders to understand the business case. We are actually covering that in another equivalent session next week. We'll talk a little bit more about that around getting executive buy-in. So that's, as we all know, with change from the top down and the bottom up is also incredibly important in terms of putting in place wellbeing champions, people who really love it, committed to it, and that can be identified in the assessment in terms of the wellbeing assessment as to who's really keen on this and who wants to be involved. And as those people get involved, they get educated and they're pretty keen and positive, then they're sharing the message as well. So both those applications are incredibly important from an engagement perspective.
Bill, we're also covering this next week, how to secure executive buy-in. Do you want to do a very brief overview on this data? Because I think it's really important, even though we're going to cover it next week, just so people on the call today have a bit of an idea about this.
Yeah, as you can see from the 3 headings there, specifically, there's the legal obligations and requirements. As you know, one of the law firms have started to get across this, and if there's law firms in the audience, then you're already familiar with this. There's generally a recognition that if the legal aspects of this don't get managed appropriately, then it'll just blow out. Originally, like the way physical claims were in these sort of 90s and in 2000s, there were just huge amounts of money being paid out. So there's work being done. Largely, a lot of claims are going to be put through the Fair Work Commission, so that they are capped and managed. And then so there's a whole lot of things around the legal obligations. And then again, you can approach this just purely from a compliance perspective or actually really see the value. And there are a number of organizations, there's been quite a lot of research that's really identified the significant ROI that is available when investing in the whole area of wellbeing and mitigating psychosocial risks, et cetera, et cetera. One particular piece of work that we focus in is, a lot of managers are really, really good, but some of them struggle. Their stress reactions are not ideal. Their mental, emotional self-awareness is not that good, and they're often a pretty high risk. I just actually got a call from a client or an email yesterday of a particular manager who's causing some serious issues. And so one of the pieces of work we do is just working one-on-one with individual managers to develop their own self-awareness, because often if a manager has got a lot of stress going on in their lives, could have relationship issues, could have a parent who's really unwell, could have a whole raft of other challenges, then their emotional situation is going to be pretty difficult. That will land on their people and increase risks. And then finally, the value, VOI, as we know, there's lots and lots of significant value that can come out of all of this work when we enable people to bring their best selves to work and really deal with things well. I guess a really important theme is, number one, is let's stop stigmatizing mental health. Mental health, as defined by the World Health Organization, is really positive. Positive relationships, you know, doing our work well, managing change well, making contribution to, you know, communities. And just like physical health, we need physical health, we need mental health. Mental health is not a bad thing. What we've got to be so careful of is, oh, you know, they've got mental health.
Yeah.
Got mental health. Like, no, you know, someone might have physical health challenges. Someone might have mental health challenges. You know, I don't encourage not the use of words like mental health issues, mental health problems. We have challenges. We all have challenges from time to time. And being able to kind of really open up the space around this is really, really important. And being really caring, supportive. Yes, we want to be our best, but also, you know, stuff happens in our lives that we need support around.
Thanks, Bill. This is a real roadblock for people. I hear wellbeing leads all the time say, I am trying to build this wellbeing program and I have a roadblock because my leader is not bought into this, or our executive team are still poo-pooing this. And so if this is you, I invite you to come and join us next week on the 7th of Feb. We're doing an entire hour on this topic, how to secure exec buy-in. So we're going to go into these 3 boxes and show you the research and the detail in that makes a very convincing business case. We're then going to take it one step further, and I'm going to show you some real examples, some scenarios from businesses of where we've had so much trouble at executive level, we have gone ground up approach only. I'm going to show you what happens when we do it like that. I'm going to show you cases where we have eventually convinced executives and they've bought in because we've built a big groundswell. I've also got an example to share with you next week, which is about me basically sitting in this photo with a group of financial directors from 12 different companies across Australia. And I pitched a wellbeing program to them and I got their feedback about the pitch. So I cannot wait to share that with you because they said, yes, this is good. Yes, this is interesting. No, don't care about that. So I want to show you what they don't care about and what they do care about, because that will really show you how to actually build your business case. Here's what we know doesn't work: sitting back and waiting for a budget to arrive. Because if they are not bought in, you are going to get 0. And you might be one of the many clients on the phone to me saying, we really want to do something in this space and we have 0 budget. What next? And I say to them, what did you do about that? I was just waiting for the budget to arrive. So we really need to take a proactive approach in this. We need to start with our assessment. We need to build our data. We need to customize our program. And we need to present it and actually do a sales pitch to our execs to get this across the line. So please come along next week to how to secure exec buy-in. We're going to do a really deep dive into this topic. I want to save a couple of minutes at the end for questions. Bill and I are happy to take. If you've got questions in the back of your mind, pop them into the chat box now. We're really happy to answer those before we close today's session. Just wanted to share with you a couple of examples. These are some of our corporate clients. I'm going to pick the Australian Grand Prix Corporation as an example, who customised a program specifically to meet their needs. They ran the MotoGP in Phillip Island last October, and they wanted to run a wellbeing readiness plan for their people in the lead up to the event so that they don't get burnt out. So it's a very specific way of building your wellbeing program. A couple of government clients that you can see up on the screen. One of this is Queensland Government. So I'm currently leading a wellbeing research project with the Queensland Government in the red meat industry. And what they are doing is going in and doing assessments and we are building for them industry-specific wellbeing resources. And we've got a lot of employees from the Solomon Islands, from Fiji, coming in through the PALM scheme system, the PLS workers, and they learn in a very different way. So we are absolutely customizing those wellbeing resources to be really easy to understand, where English is second language. We're doing a lot of imagery, we're doing a lot of videos, and we're doing a lot of culturally aligned training. So they like to train with cups of tea and talking to each other and socializing. So quite different to what we would do in the Aussie corporate world, but it shows you how deeply we actually need to customize. Thank you, Doreen, for joining. Lovely to have you here today. So this brings us to the end of today's session. This is the bit where you actually get to download your free resources. I've put a link in the chat box. The easiest way to do it is probably just to scan the code on the screen. When you get to the form on the other side of this code, what you will find is all of those things that you can download. So you can go in and choose which of those free wellbeing tools you would like, and you can order any of those. There are also options on there to book a call. So happy to talk with you, or Bill and I can come and do a call with you. And there's all different ways we can support. So feel free to click any of those things that are really helpful for you. Go and get your free tools by all means. The whole purpose of today's session was really to try and help you feel much more confident in building wellbeing. And I've got a photo on the very right-hand side of me holding a little sign saying #I'm here. And I very briefly just want to share, this is the story from the first day that we ever launched mental health and wellbeing at Johnson & Johnson. So we did a mental health strategic plan there in Australia and got up and we did an I'm here hashtag for everyone. And it was all about being of support to each other and that peer support. And of all the things I had done in my career up until that day, it was by far the most rewarding and meaningful action I had ever taken in my career. Because the follow on after that was people calling, people stopping me in the hallway saying, I have worked with these teams for 5 years or 10 years and no one has ever disclosed mental illness issues to me before. And today they've done it for the first time. So I share that story to encourage you to be this person that can really make a difference in your workplace, because it is beyond rewarding to do that. Thank you, Catherine, so much. So if you've got your free wellbeing tools in there, my final slide is just to invite you to come and join us for the rest of the wellbeing events by CWH. We're running 6 in Q1, so we are going to be very busy. But the next one we've got is next week, 7th of Feb. So feel free to scan that code if you'd like to register for next week. And we've got another 4 after that going up until the 5th of March. We hope to see you at the next sessions. If you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. Bill and I are happy to answer those now. Thank you, Des. Thank you, Brent. Glad you enjoyed.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Have a good week.
Thanks, Felicity, Susie, Donna, Joy. Very glad it was helpful. Thanks, Sonia, Stephanie and Rachel and Jessica. Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Francesca. Really glad it was helpful. Thanks for the comment. Okay, we don't have any questions in there, so I think we will close today's session. Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you, Carli. Pleasure as always, and great seeing everyone who's in the audience, and love to help further as we can.
And Megan, appreciate your sharing and your knowledge with us. You're very welcome. And Brett, thank you. We'll see you all next time. Thanks very much. Bye.